Hi there, welcome to Elm Colors. I'm Erica. On today's video, I'm going to be doing a color long in Mythographic Aviary. This is the focus book for February, and I'm very excited to color this page. So our page today is this Swan page. This is the one that you all voted for, and I think it's going to be just really beautiful. When I was looking up inspiration images, I just pinned a bunch of stuff that I was inspired by. So there's lots of different images. I am really inspired by the colors more over here and the dark sky here. So I think we're going to do a combination of that. And yeah, we're gonna see what happens. I'm not sure what I want to do and how all this is going to go, but I'm gonna try my best. So we're going to do some alcohol marker work first, and then I'm going to come in with some chalk pastels and possibly, I'm trying to decide on this or not, but possibly some oil pastels, because I really liked this. I like the darkness of the sky in the background. I want a dark sky, but I like the idea of having just a few colors come across. So if I can't get that effect with the chalk pastels, I might try that with some oil pastels. So we shall see. But yeah, so let me grab a backer page and we'll get started. Okay, so just like I said, we're going to start out with markers in the background. So I don't have the color that I want in the background. So I'm going to combine a couple of markers. So I have this Ohuhu PB5 and the Cool Gray 7, and I'm going to combine these two. I'm going to start with the gray, and then I'm going to go over top with the blue to give it a nice dark blue tint. And this is kind of the color palette or the color tone that I wanted for the sky. So yeah, we're going to start with that, and then I am going to use this pinky purple. This is the Ohuhu Pastel R250. I'm going to use that on the clouds without the little extra texture lines. So if you look at the clouds here, you have some that have extra texture and some that don't. Actually, I might use this on all of it and then just alter it with colored pencils a little bit. I think that's what I'm going to do. So blue sky, pink clouds, probably darker pink flowers, probably. And then like a creamy pink swan. And I'm not sure on the character yet, but we'll figure that out as we go. So I'm going to start with the alcohol markers in the sky. All right, so you can see that I am avoiding the main elements of the image, but I am going over top of the stars. That's because when I come back in for embellishments later on, I will be using some kind of metallic, either watercolor or a gel pen, and that'll go right over top of the alcohol marker in the background. But the bigger stars here, I want to make sure that those are not covered, because I'm not quite sure what I want to do with those yet. And then, of course, the image itself needs to be not covered by alcohol markers. So yeah, just keep that in mind, that it's okay to cover up things with alcohol markers, because you can come back in later on with different mediums to bring those right back out of the background. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish up this sky, and I'll record a little bit of that. I'm going to go ahead and do the blue on this side so you guys can see that. And then I will be doing the rest of it off screen, and we'll move on to the next step. So I will talk to you again here in just a second. Okay, so there is the sky marker done. I'm going to use this pastel fuchsia, whatever it's called, on all of the clouds. So I'm just going to go through and just do a quick layer of that really quick. Yeah, and then we will get started on the next steps. Okay, there we go. So marker base is done. That's good to go. Now we're going to play with some chalk pastels. I usually use these with just a cotton pad and rub it straight from the chalk, but I think today I'm going to try something a little bit different. We're going to try to pick it up off of like a makeshift palette. So I just like to use paper for this when I do this. But we are going to be using, let me see what colors I need to grab really quick. Okay, for the first part, I think I am just going to pull it straight from the chalk itself. I'm going to use a little tiny bit of pink for the swan itself. So I'm just going to grab some pink off of here. I'm going to use my little piece of paper off to the side and get rid of some of the color, and then just come in and add a little bit to my swan. Now this doesn't do a ton of color. It just gives it a really, actually I could probably just go, yeah, I'm just gonna go straight on, take the chalk straight from here and put it on there. I'm gonna go ahead and do all the wings that way too. Okay. All right, so we have a base layer down of a very light pink. I wonder if you guys can, it probably isn't even showing up too much for you guys, but it is slightly pink. Okay, so I'm gonna use my craft knife and the chalk, and I'm gonna scrape some onto this paper and use it as a palette. So I'm gonna do that. I'll try to, if there's any icky sounds, I will try to mute those, but I just scrape the edge of the chalk and make a little pile of chalk dust, basically. Okay, and then I'm gonna take, so you can use Q-tips. I've used Q-tips in the past. I also really like to use these foam makeup adhesives, so makeup blenders. Goodness, I can't say words today. I use this brand by this Jane Davenport brand. I really like the feel of the foam, but I'm sure most makeup blenders would be just the same. I'm gonna try first to use, no, I'm just gonna use the makeup blender. So I get a little bit of the chalk so you can see it on there, and then I rub it on a paper first before I come in with my blender on my page. And this really lets you get precise color where you want it without getting it everywhere. Like, it'll erase pretty easily, so it's not too much of a hassle if you do get it places that you don't want. But and the other thing is it's going to be a lot darker since you are applying it directly to the page. Okay. All right, I like that. Okay, so let's try what I was talking about earlier with having some colors in the sky. I'm going to try it first with lighter colors and see how that does. So I have this little teeny tiny bit of, it's like periwinkle. I'm going to try that one, and I'm going to try some of this turquoise, and we'll see if that works. Okay. And I'm just going to pick it up with this makeup blender here. So I'm going to put a little bit on the tip of my makeup blender. And yeah, that's not going to work, unfortunately. Okay, so I could use oil pastels, or I could try another thing with just using Prismacolors on top. Okay, so instead of doing that in the sky, I'm gonna try the Prismacolor technique down there, but I am gonna add some darker colors to the clouds down at the bottom here. So I'm gonna use a mix of some things. So I've got a darker pink here that I'll use. I've got It's almost like a mulberry kind of color. And then I do have a couple of blues I could bring in as well, so maybe we'll try one of those too and see how that goes. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the pink, this dark pink. So I pat a little bit on the tip, and I'm gonna rub some of that off. And in the textured clouds, I'm just gonna add a little bit more color to those. I thought I would keep the clouds really pale, but I kind of like the darker, like the brighter pinks, more vibrant pinks on the clouds and the blue and the sky, and then have maybe the flowers and the swan be just the lighter areas. I think that'll look nice. Okay. All right, and then I just brush off any extra. I like that. I'm gonna add a little bit of the even darker pink. Hopefully this is, yeah, it's not quite as bright. And I'm gonna add a little bit of that down to the corners. When you're adding this too, you want to try to use a circular motion so you don't end up with any like weird straight lines, that the color just kind of looks like it just flows from one color to the next. I'm adding it in areas where maybe the clouds overlap a little bit, so anywhere where it'd be like a darker bit of cloud, I'm going to add that there too. And I know I'm getting messy around the outside edge of the page, but that's okay because I will come in and clean it up with Posca or something later on. I do like using this technique though, because you can really, especially with these little makeup blenders, you can really get in and add color right where you want it and not worry about it getting every single place else. Okay, let me dust that off. All right, I do like that. I think I want this part up here to be a little bit lighter and then darker as we come kind of this way. I think that's the plan. So yeah, anywhere where clouds overlap, I'm gonna add in this darker color. And hopefully that'll cut down on some of the blending that I have to do with my pencils later on. I can just come in and add like the super dark shadows. I don't have to worry about blending and blending and blending. It'll already kind of be blended for me. Okay. Okay, I like that. I'll hold it up so you guys can see. I'm hoping you can kind of get the gist of it, but you can see that there's now like variations in the color. That's one of the reasons I like to use the chalk pastels, because you can really get a nice, instead of just that solid color, you can get a nice flowy background. Okay, so now I'm gonna dump the rest of this chalk, and we'll get started on the next section. Okay, let's play with our Prismacolor. Also, I should probably say this really quick. I'm not going to be sealing this, I don't think, because there's not a ton of chalk on there, and what's on there is pushed into the paper enough that I don't need to worry about it going anywhere. I've had a lot of people ask me about that. I only use fixative when I use a ton of chalk or when I'm layering it over a water medium, because for some reason that doesn't let the chalk get down in the paper. It sits on top of that water medium. So just FYI on that. Okay, so I'm going to use my white Prismacolor on top of this blue, and it's hopefully going to do what I want it to do. Oh, I forgot to add the blue to this little spot. Let me do that real quick. Okay, so I'm going to just draw in, not anything defined. I don't know if I want large swatches in each corner. I think I want kind of things flowing across the sky. So I'm going to hold my pencil back pretty far, and I'm just going to bring in some lighter areas with the Prismacolor white. And I'm not doing straight across, and I'm not doing the same thickness in the lines. I'm going to make things bigger and smaller. And as I go towards the center of the page, I will kind of taper that off. I'm also going to extend little like shoot offs from this main section with the Prismacolor white as well. Just so you get a nice abstract shape and you're not just a solid block of white across the page. All right, next we're going to try one thing and see if this pencil brand will work, and if it doesn't, then I will move to a different one. I wanted to try to use my Black Widows on this page. So I've got my Blue Heaven color, and I'm just going to come right over top of my Prismacolor white here. And I'm hoping that you can see that, yes, now I can see that blue on top of the blue underneath. And this is just, it's a fun way to get some variation in the background instead of having to, you know, switch between markers and have the blends all be perfect. This is a way that I've found that you can add a little bit of color this way. I'm wondering if I can do, I'm just going to use this old chalk here. Wonder if I can get, not as much as the, well, it's not bad. I was trying to get some of the chalk to show up on top of the white, and it was working okay, but not great. So we're just gonna stick with the blue. And then if you use this blue to blend into the dark, it starts to disappear as you move farther away from the white, but it still kind of creates a cool kind of glowy effect. So I'm gonna hold that up closer so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And yeah, so I'm just going to keep playing like this. I'm going to add a few of these kind of strands across the page. Now that one will probably be the biggest one that I do. I probably am not going to do quite as big of a swath next time. So I'll just do a little bit here, maybe a little bit right here. I also have to remember that I have this kind of magic coming off of the harp. So I kind of need to just kind of keep that in mind so that when I come to paint over, I think I'll probably use like, I'll use like a gold sparkly paint for that. I think that's what I'm going to do for that. And then, so I'll have the lighter color kind of down on here, which will be nice. Let me go finish. I'm just going to add this blue on top of all the white sections that I've already done. I'll be right back with you. Okay, next I'm going to use the Zephyr Blue from the Black Widow set, and I'm going to just add in. First I'm going to come in underneath the little magic strands that are drawn on the page, because when I ink them with the watercolor, I kind of want them to stand out from the page a little bit. I want them to have that nice shadow underneath. So I'm just going to go ahead and add that in, and then when I paint that in later, that'll look pretty cool. Okay. And then the other thing I can do with this Zephyr Blue is I can add in a little variations within this larger swath now too. So I can break this up a little bit so I can come in and add, you know, more color in the center. Again, trying to not have it be an expected shape. It needs to be very flowy. So I'm just adding little bits and pieces of this darker blue throughout those colors that I have drawn in. And do that all the way across. All right, and then this Zephyr is really close to this background color, but it does still create a little bit of a shadow, so I might come through with a bit of that in a few places just to create some more variation in the colors in the background. Yeah, it's hard to see it. Like, I don't even know if you can see it really, but I could darken that up with some black as well. All right, and if you're worried about the texture that the pencils have left over, you can use a colorless blender and really get in there and blend those colors together really good. And you just have these fun kind of magical little bits in the sky. And then what I'll do when I finish this off, I'll have a lot of Posca dots or something in the background, probably paint marker dots in the background along these little trails of color in the sky. Okay, so I'll hold that up so you can see the different colors that are in that background. Even though it's just like a blue sky, it's now got some fun variations. Okay, next we're going to work on the clouds. This is going to take probably the most time, even with the added bits that I did already with the chalk. I am going to use, I've got a lot of pinks in this Black Widow set that I like. They're not quite all like this, I don't know if they're brighter than I'm looking for. Let me grab my Polychromos. Okay, so when I start with a pencil brand, I usually like to try to stick with it, but I think this is going to be the right move because this has a lot of the colors that I'm looking for, this whole color family right here. I think that'll look really nice. Okay, so we're going to go with the, I'm going to use the burnt carmine, the magenta, and the caput mortem violet. I don't know how you say that, but that one. So it's 263, oh, my eyes. 133, I think, and 193. That feels right. So those are the colors I'm going to use on my clouds down here. And then, of course, my Prismacolor white and possibly cream will come into play. So I'll do this little section up here for you guys, just to show you like I'll do this whole little corner here, just so you can see kind of all of the color combos that I'll be using. So the burnt carmine is the most reddish kind of color. I am going to grab also, I'm going to try the light magenta and see how close of a blend I can get with that one. But yeah, anywhere where there is an overlap of cloud, I add a little bit of shading. And I just do that over and over and over. And so I'll do a line close to the line that's drawn, and then I just move, as I move my pencil away from that line, I just lighten up my pressure. And I just add in some color to those areas. So, and then like for up here, this, because there's not really anywhere to add shadow, you just kind of make your own. So I'm going to do a little bit right here. It's kind of like what I did in the sky, where I just kind of drew in the shapes. I am going to leave a little bit of a glow around the stars. So try to remember that as I'm going through. You know what I might do, just to remind myself? I might go ahead with my white Prisma and just outline all of the stars with white. And then that'll kind of reserve that highlight. That's one of the things I like the most about using alcohol markers with Prismas on top, because you can really get a good highlight drawn back in when you use this Prisma white. So yeah, and even though I've already done some work on the sky here, I can come back in with my white and just give a little outline into that star. So yeah, I'm gonna go do this really quick. All the bigger stars I'm gonna outline, and then I will be right back and we'll work on clouds some more. Okay, all right, that part's done. Okay, so let's get back to this. So I'm gonna switch now to this light magenta, and I'm gonna blend the color that I was working with out as best I can. Okay, and then I'm gonna come in, let's do the cream first. We'll do a little bit of blending with the cream in a couple of spots. Let's do a little bit right here. And then I'll use the white in other areas. So I'll just change up the blending color. Sometimes I'll use white, sometimes I'll use cream, and that'll create some good interest on the background there too. So you can see I've kind of used that, my cream and my white as actual blender pencils too. So I can blend my colors really well together. It does lighten them a bit, but I'm going for light, so it's okay. I just want that, that really good blended look is what I'm wanting. So yeah, and then you just come in with your colors and blend things together. So yeah, I'm gonna do that color palette on all of the lighter clouds at the top, or that color combo on all the lighter clouds at the top. The next one, I'm gonna use the magenta to add in some shading. And I'm just gonna go through really quickly and just kind of highlight some of the patterns that are drawn on here, plus anywhere where there's overlap from the next layer of clouds. Hope that makes sense. Here, I'll do a little bit over here too, because there's some in there. And then back here. But yeah, I'm just kind of adding a little bit of color on all of the lines that are there, and I'm going to use this light magenta to blend that out a little bit, just a tiny bit. So I'm just going right over top of all of the pencil work that I've done. And then I'm going to use my white to really bring in the edges of the clouds and anywhere where I think there might be a little bit of a highlight. So yeah, it's not a huge difference between one cloud set and the next. I just wanted to shift the color just a little bit so that there was enough, again, variation in the background. Yeah, I'm gonna get this little bit colored up here too, so you can kind of see this whole section before I go off and do the rest of this on my own. Just a reminder that these are all light layers. This is not hard pressure until I go to put my Prismacolor white on. Then I usually do a little bit of pressure. It's not super hard, but it's a little bit of pressure so that I can get the colors to move and blend how I want them to. Okay, and then down in this corner, I'm going to be using a combination of almost, I think, all of the colors that I've used so far. So I'm going to start with the dark one. So that's 263. Okay, now I'm going to switch to the magenta. I'm going right over top of the color I've already put down and just expanding on that one. Okay, and then I'm going to add in some of the burnt carmine as well. Okay, so adding in this lightest color here. And then we're going to come in with the white to start. And I'm going to add in a little bit of cream in a couple of spaces. I like to use the white right at the edges to really give that nice brighter highlight. And then I don't really want to use my white along the darker stuff, so I'm going to use this colorless blender to get in here and blend in like that darkest color. Yeah, so you can see I'm going to have 3 different colors of clouds across the rest of the page here, so I'm hoping that looks cool. And then I will come in also with my white Prismacolor, and we'll just clean up all the edges. So I'll go right along the edges of all the clouds, and anywhere where I think it might need a little bit of extra highlight, I will be adding that in with this Posca. I don't have to outline completely the clouds if I don't want to. I think just adding this little highlight is enough sometimes. And plus it's less time spent doing just busy work, really. All right, and then one more thing. I'm gonna use this Zephyr Blue as a shadow color. So like in the darkest areas down here, I am gonna add this Zephyr Blue right over top of what I've already done. And anywhere where large cloud, like the different kinds of clouds overlap each other, and also like when these flowers poke up, I'm gonna add a nice amount of shadow under those as well. All right, I'm gonna finish off this little bit, show you what that's gonna look like, and then I'm gonna go off screen and finish the rest of that. So I think going forward on this part, I'm just gonna use a little bit less of the this 263, because it does create more of a brown tone, and that's not what I'm wanting. So I'm just going to use a little bit of it in the darkest shadows. Then everywhere else I'm going to use the magenta and the burnt carmine. Okay, so there you can kind of see what this part is what this is gonna look like, and that's gonna be all the way across the background. I am gonna bring in a few little dots around the clouds as well. So anywhere where there's a highlighted area, it's gonna get just a few extra little dots. All right, so yeah, so I'm gonna finish off the rest of the clouds, and I will be back with you, and we will work on the swan. Okay, so here is the page with all of the sky work done and all of the clouds done in the background. You can see I've added lots of dots and highlights with my white Posca pen, and done a different, you can kind of see a little bit of a difference between these clouds, and then the clouds in the middle. But it still is just like a big chunk of pink. I kind of like it. So I think what we're gonna do next is work on the swan. I know that I did a very light layer of pink chalk pastel. I think I'm going to give it another hit with the pink, just so that I have a little bit more to work on. So I'm going to grab a cotton pad, and then I'm just going to give it another light little covering. Because as I add color in here, want a little bit of that pink to show up a little bit more. So yeah, okay, and now I'm gonna clean up what I just did because I made a mess on part of my harp here. Usually to do that, I will use my Derwent electric eraser, or I also have the Mono Zero Round, and it's a really, really tiny tip, so I can really get into tiny spaces if I need to. But yeah, I really like to use both of those. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna work on the feathers of the swan. I'm going to be using a combination of several different colors. I'm going to see what I've got in my Black Widows first. Okay, so I'm going to start with these 3 Black Widow pencils. So I have Maiden Pink, Bliss, and Ice Cream. I'm going to try with those. I will probably come in with my cream and white Prismacolors as well, just to get some color difference in there. So let's zoom in and we'll start on the head of the swan. All right, hopefully that is zoomed in enough for you guys to kind of see what I'm doing. I am going to go through with my Maiden Pink first and very lightly add in my shadows. So anywhere where feathers overlap other feathers, anywhere where Joseph has drawn in some little texture lines for the feathers on the goose's, nope, on the swans. Did I call it a goose? Possibly. On the swan's feathers, just add a little bit of color. And I'm not pushing hard. This is not hard pressure at all. Okay. So we did that, and then I'm going to use, I'm going to add a little bit more right here. I'm going to use a little bit of the Bliss now to blend that out a tiny bit. And anywhere where I haven't already added a little bit of pink, I'm going to add some to that. And then I'm going to use the Ice Cream color to blend that out even more. Now this is one of my favorite colors in this set. It's a very light pinky peachy color, and it just makes me happy for some reason. I just really like it. Okay, so now I don't have quite enough contrast, so I am going to come in with a little bit more pink, just kind of right around the swan's beak. And in those darker areas again, I'm just going to add a little bit more pink into those spots. A little bit darker. Okay, and then, well, first I'm going to use my white to try to bring back the white where I might have gone over a little bit with the background marker. So like right along the edges of the swan's head. And then I'm also going to use the white right on the tips of the feathers that are drawn. Just all of those feathers, and then maybe a couple of spots throughout the head as well. And I'm going to use my cream and kind of do the same thing. Maybe not necessarily in the same areas that I did the white. So I have some white highlights and some cream highlights mixed in with the pinks. I think that'll be a good look. And then I just kind of keep adding in little layers, remembering to go lightly as I do that and follow the direction that the texture lines for the feathers have kind of been drawn in. So yeah, I'm just going to do that over and over all the way down into the swan's body. I might leave it a little whiter, a little brighter on the stomach of the swan. So I might come through, I'll show you how to do that, how I'll do that, I think. Here, in just a second. Let me finish this little part up here on the neck. There we go. Okay. So it's not, I mean, it's not a ton of a difference between this side and this side, but you can kind of see the differences in the shading. I am going to add in a little bit of, I'm going to really be using this Zephyr Blue as my shadow color for most of this. So I'm going to add a little bit around the beak and around the eye. That's really going to be my dark color, and then I'll come back over top of the part around the beak with a little bit of pink to blend it out. But yeah, like anywhere where there's like the really dark shadows. So typically under like feathers and stuff like that, I'm going to add just a little bit of that. And then I'm also going to add it underneath where the harp is, because I'm going to have this part be metallic. So it'll be kind of like a piece that's maybe attached to the swan or that the swan is just wearing. But it's gonna just kind of create a shadow because it's definitely gonna be a 3D piece that sticks off of the swan a little bit. So yeah, I'll just add a little bit of that into those shadowed areas, and then we'll have that nice dimension in there. And if you don't like the blue, you can use purple, you can use gray, you can use whatever color you want. If you want it to be more of like a brown tone with the shadow, you can absolutely use like a green or a brown to do the shading, but I like the pink and the blue together for some reason. That just works for me. Okay. Yeah, so there is like the swan's head, and I'm going to do that for the whole neck and most of the body, but I'm going to shift down here and kind of show you what I'm planning to do on the belly of the swan, just to make it lighter. And then I will go off camera and do the rest, and then we'll come back and work on the feathers a little bit together. Okay, so in the belly of the swan, I'm going to start, hold on a second. All right, I'm going to use a little bit of the sherbet color from the Black Widows and the Dark Night. Now this is a really grayish blue. So like, especially where the wings overlap, that'll get a nice coat of that, possibly the darker blue too. But I don't want my, my shadows to be as dark pink on the stomach of the swan. I want them to be a little bit less pink. So I am using this sherbet color instead of the Maiden Pink as the first layer. And it's just gonna be in this area, like this part up here will be pink and this part back here will be pink, but this part in the middle is gonna be a little more white, a little more cream. So yeah, that's probably good there. And then I'm we're gonna just go straight to the ice cream and blend that out pretty well. Just be a slightly warmer tone on the feathers. Okay, I'm gonna use quite a bit of cream in the areas, different areas. Where this flower overlaps, I need to do a little bit more in that area. Okay, and then I'm going to use white again to brighten up just the edges of the the feathers. The leaves, they're not leaves. Okay, and then I will use this Dark Night color, and it's just barely, just in the very, very darkest areas. I don't want to do a lot of that at all, because I don't want to use too much blue because it could react with the orange in the sherbet just a little bit wrongly. So I'm just using a little tiny bit. In areas where things overlap. So so this part here is going to be more warm compared to the head up top. So I hope that you can see kind of the difference between those two. All right, so I'm going to head off screen and do the rest of this, and then we'll come back and work on some feathers together. So I'll be with you in a second. Okay, so we can see here, hopefully you can see, there's a little bit more cream kind of coloring in here. When I was actually doing the shading, I went a little darker than I wanted to, but I think it looks nice. I think that the swan itself looks pretty cool. I think there's enough contrast between the feathers and stuff. I am going to add a little bit more contrast by adding some white Posca. So anywhere where the feathers are drawn in, I'm going to highlight those with a little bit of white. I'm also going to add a little bit of feather into the, I'm going to zoom you in a little bit more, into the background. So to do that, I'm going to have to turn the book a little bit because I got to be able to flick my Posca the right way. I'm going to, like I said, add a little bit of Posca onto the areas that are raised up or that the distinct feathers are drawn in. But then I'm going to just do a little flick, little tiny flicks with my Posca, and that's going to help make this look really feathery. I'm not going to be able to do it around this side yet. I might have to come back in and add that in, but anywhere where the swan touches the background that's already done, you can add in a few of those feather strokes. Now, it's not every single one, but you can kind of see, hopefully I was on screen for that. Sorry if I wasn't. But yeah, you can see along the edge here now where just those little flicks kind of create a little bit of feathered look. All right, and so now I'm just going through again with the white Posca and adding a few highlights in different areas. I'm going to continue to highlight the feathers that are drawn in. And then again, when I get to areas where it overlaps the background that's already been done, I'm going to add just a few little flicks outwards of my white Posca to create kind of a feathery look. This is the one benefit of having your background done first, is you can come in and add these kind of details with your Posca as you go, instead of, you know, trying to remember to do it all at once when your page is finished. And just remembering to check and make sure that your Posca is actually has paint coming out of it. It is always a good thing to remember too. So, and then you don't want to just come straight out from the side. You want to think about the way that the feathers are on the page and just kind of do little motions in that direction. My Posca is being a little difficult right now, but yeah, anytime I draw a line in though, I'm keeping the direction of the feathers in mind. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to finish off doing the rest of this part down here, and I will be right back with you guys. Okay, so there is the swan. I think what we're gonna do next is I'm going to work on the wing here. I'm gonna use the same color combo that I did for the main body of the swan up on this first like set of feathers here. And then as we move outwards, I'm gonna go, this one's gonna be a little bit more cream, kind of like what we did on the belly. And then this one is gonna be like cream into white. And then I'm gonna tip it with gold. That's my plan. We'll see how this works. So I'm going to show you a few of the feathers here, and then all of them are going to be the same. So I'm just going to do a few on camera with you guys and then go off and finish the rest on my own. So let me zoom in on this section here. We're going to start here first. And this is, like I said, the same kind of thing where I'm going to use the Maiden Pink, a combination of this, the Bliss, the ice cream color, and then the cream and the white. And so this is just really, you know, you don't have to, like I've said previously in color alongs, you don't have to have these same colors. Just like a darker pink, a lighter pink, and a creamy color maybe would probably be great for this. Yeah, and then you're just going to add your color into the areas that are already drawn in with shadows. So you can kind of see where all of the texture lines are drawn in. So this part is going to be a little bit lighter, and then I'm going to go a little darker as I get out this way on the top part, and then we'll lighten up as we go away from the main body of the swan. Okay, so this area right here is all going to be the same kind of color palette. So again, dark pink, light pink, then we'll do a layer of the ice cream, And each time I go over the previous color, I do extend outward from where I've placed that color already. I hope that makes sense. Okay, and then the edges of the feathers are all going to get a little bit of white Prisma, just to kind of save that lightness. Okay, and then we're going to come in with the Zephyr Blue, and on the areas where there's a lot of shadow, we're going to add that color right in there. Okay, and then I'm gonna just blend that out a little bit with a lighter pink color, just go right over top of that blue. Okay, and then I'm gonna add in just a little bit of cream in a couple of places. Okay, all right, so there's that section. I'm gonna do kind of the same thing on this this first row and this second row will be exactly the same as what I just did. So I'm going to head off screen and take care of that really quick. Okay, there is the next section of the wing done. So now we're going to work on this little bit of the wing. All right, I'm going to use pretty much the same colors, except instead of the darker, the Zephyr Blue, I'm going to use Dark Night instead. And instead of starting with the Maiden Pink, I'm going to start with the Bliss. And that's just going to give us a lighter, shadowy color to start with. But I am going to add that kind of everywhere there's a little bit of shadow. So yeah, so all of these leaves here will get that treatment. Anywhere where there's a line, I'm giving a little bit of color right over top of that line. Okay, and then I'm going to use the ice cream to blend that out a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to use the Dark Night in the darkest areas, so specifically where things overlap each other and where they've got quite a bit of shadow drawn in on the image already. So you can kind of see, you can tell where the shadows are supposed to be based on where they have added it already. That's the nice thing about, one of the nicest things about his books is that you can really see what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, I am going to add quite a bit of white over the center of those. And then we're going to do a little bit of cream in a couple of spots. And I don't know if you can see the difference really between those two, but this one definitely has more pink and this is more like a peachy kind of color. And then the next layer will be even more peachy. And then the last layer will be like super, basically white and cream. Okay, so I'm gonna finish doing these little feathers. I did it again. These little feathers, and then we'll come back and do the next set. Okay, next section is done. As I'm going as well, I'm gonna be using either my white Posca or my white gel pen, if that's gonna work better for me right now, but I'm gonna just make sure that I have really, really white highlights on the edges of the feathers. I want that to have enough difference that you can kind of see that it's lighter at the edge and then darker as you move in. I hope that makes sense, because I just want to make sure that that's got a nice highlighted edge. I'm going to see if this will work with the gel pen too. Oh yeah, that works too. Because my Posca is giving me issues, so I don't know if that's gonna continue throughout the thing. So I'm gonna just kind of try what I've got on hand. Okay, next layer of wings. We're gonna again do the same thing. I'm gonna see what other colors I can kind of work into this now. All right, I have this washed purple. This is from one of the skin sets from Black Widow, and I think I'm going to try to do that as my shadow color for these next two rows. I think. Let's see how this goes. So I'm going to start on these feathers. And this will be the same color palette for each feather in this section, this next section. So I'm going to start with this washed purple. And you know, where the feathers overlap, I probably will come back in with another darker color just to make sure that they really, you can tell that there's a good overlap there, but I just don't want to, I don't want the shading on the actual feather itself to be too dark. So yeah, starting with the washed purple, then we'll switch to the Bliss color, and then more of the ice cream this time. So instead of more of the Bliss, we're doing more of the ice cream. And then white at the ends. So really, I'm pushing pretty hard with my white too to get a nice opaque white layer to build some stuff up on. Grab the cream a little bit, add that in. Yeah, and I am gonna just go ahead and come in with a darker color just where these overlap. So I'm using the Zephyr Blue. So it's not a huge difference between one layer and the next, but it is a little bit of variation, so it's not just all the same color all the way across. Okay, so I'm gonna go through and do the rest of these feathers, and then we'll come back and do the next one. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, last row of feathers is gonna be a lot of white and cream. And then the ends I'm gonna do with a little bit of gold paint. So I'm not gonna color all the way to the ends on these. I just want it to look cool. So I'm gonna try something and hope that it works, but we'll see. So we're gonna do kind of the same colors that we did here. I'm gonna start with the washed gray in the dark areas. Washed purple, sorry, the washed purple. Okay, so we're just gonna do like this handful of feathers here on camera together, and then I will go off camera and finish off the rest. But okay, so there's the washed purple, and then I'm gonna come in with the ice cream and go right over the top of that. And I'm not going to the edge of the feather. Okay, so that's, I mean, there's barely any color on that, so I don't even know if you guys will be able to see it, but, and then I'm gonna use the cream at the end of that ice cream color. And then I'm gonna blend that out a little bit with the white. And you don't wanna put the white all the way at the end, because when you add your watercolor, it's not gonna, and the wax in your Prismacolors could make it resist a little bit, so it's a little persnickety sometimes if you don't do it quite right. I'm gonna hold this up just so you can kind of see the color variation. There's not a ton of color on there, but there's some. Okay, so now let me grab my gold. I'm gonna be using my Cosmic Shimmer Gold palette here, and I'm gonna do, I think this gold. All right, I have a little bit of gold paint on the end of my brush here, and so I'm just gonna add it right to the end of the feathers, and I'm gonna flick the color back into the feather too. So I don't want it to just be a straight line. I want it to kind of be jagged and like the feathers were actually like dipped in gold. This is probably the same gold that I'll use on the stars too. I'm just kind of giving a little bit more gold to the edge of these feathers. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna try that, and then I'll just for fun, I'm gonna go ahead and do this star while we're sitting here. Okay, that looks really shiny for you guys. It's not quite as shiny for me, but let me angle it so you can see a little bit better. Yeah, so it kind of looks like that when it's not reflecting so much. So yeah, let's zoom out and you can kind of see what that's going to look like. Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't know if I should have gone quite as high into the feather. Maybe I should have kept it more on the edge. Maybe those few feathers just got dipped farther in. So we'll just do a little bit along the edges of all of the wings on this layer, I think. And then like these little ones, they'll just kind of be gilded. So just the edges will have a little bit. But it's like as you move farther away, it gets more gold maybe, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. We'll see how this turns out. But yeah, I know that looks really super shiny for you, but it's a pretty decent color, I think. That's probably the same gold I'll use for the harp over here too. But yeah, I think that's gonna look neat. Okay, so let me go off and finish the rest of these. What I might do is go ahead, let me show you kind of how this is gonna look. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and do the gold on here too. So yeah, I'm just gonna paint, just give this a nice layer, and then I'll come in with some pencils and do a little bit of shading on this part. Yeah, I'm gonna also put the gold on the strands. So the harp itself, the little bracket pieces, and the strands will all be the same gold. So yeah, I'm going to finish the feathers and finish adding this gold on the harp. And then I will come back and we will move on to the next part. All right, so next, I think that we're gonna work on the character here really quickly. So I'm gonna zoom you in so we can see her really well. Okay, so I'm gonna use an Ohuhu marker. This is Y12. This is a mahogany color, and that's gonna be her skin tone. So I'm just gonna go through and do that real quick. This looks really dark. I'm hoping that it will be a little bit lighter, but we shall see. Okay, I'm gonna try to do a little bit of shading on her skin. So I'm using the Polychromos Dark Indigo and the number 263. Yeah, and I'm just gonna do a tiny little bit of shading. So I'm gonna use the Dark Indigo first to go in the really dark spots. All right, and then I will shade that out a little bit with this other pencil. This is, I don't do dark skin tones very often, so it's hard for me to really figure out if I'm doing it quite right. But I feel like this is working okay. It's not going to have a ton of detail, especially since she's a smaller character on the page, so I'm not overly worried about it. I'm going to use this dark indigo to do a line down her arm here, though. And then a little bit more shading on her hand, just in between fingers and in shadowed areas and stuff. And then I'm going to bring in my cream color to bring back some of the highlights. So around the edge of her nose and this part of her face over here, front of her neck, just so she has a little bit of depth. And then I am gonna do also some pink on her cheeks. I'm gonna try this red violet and see if I can get some blush color on her face. I'm going to do that on her eyes, on her cheeks, a little bit on her lips, and then a little bit on her elbow here. Use this actually to help blend things out a little bit more too. Okay, I think that's good. And then we're going to use, let's see, I'm trying to decide what color her hair should be. I think I want it to be similar color to the sky in the background. So I'm going to use a combination of pencils here. I'm going to use the dark indigo from my Polychromos, and I'm going to use the Zephyr Blue from the Black Widows. And see how we do. So I'm just going to do like chunks of shadow. So I'm going to add this dark indigo anywhere where I feel like there's should be a lot of shadow. And then I'll blend it out with the blue Zephyr. And then I might use just a nice light blue. I'll use this sky blue color to blend it out even more. So her hair is similar to the background, but it's not exact. And I just want to make sure that she's got definitely highlights and shadows that you can see in there. But again, it's not super detailed. I'm not going like strand for strand or anything on this. I'm just anywhere where I think there should be a little bit of shadow, I'm going to add that in. Okay, and then to darken up the shadows, just that little bit extra, I am using the Polychromos Black in just the darkest areas. Last little bit I'm going to do, and my head might be in the way, so I apologize. I'm going to use a very sharp dark indigo and just add in a few extra strands to her hair. And it just kind of creates an extra little bit of flow. Just so it doesn't look like it's just hand drawn and it's actually hair. I know it doesn't actually look like that, but it creates the hint of realism, I guess, when you have these extra little strands and things that are on the ends. You probably can't even see that, but I think it looks good. So we're going to go with that. Her dress and her little arm bracelet are going to be done. I think her dress, I'm going to go with white. And her belt and the little armband are going to be in the same gold that I used for the harp. So let me show you how I'm going to do her dress. I'm going to use a mix of the washed purple and probably the dark night and the white. So we'll mix those three together. So I'm going to start with the washed purple just to kind of see what, yeah, I think I'm going to have to start with the dark night actually. So I'm going to start with the dark night in all of the super darkest areas. And then I'm going to blend it out a little bit with the washed purple. And then I'm going to use the white on top of that. So it's not, you can get this same look by using just a mix of grays. So the washed purple is the only one that's kind of a little bit different. Color-wise, it doesn't really, it's not really like a warm gray, but I guess you could probably use a warm gray instead of a cool gray. So this would be like a mix of a warm gray and a cool gray for the shading here. But I don't want it to have any like super blue highlights, and I don't want it to have any super pink highlights. I just want it to be more like definitely white. So that is my game plan on that. So again, just taking the colors and going through, and wherever Joseph has added in the shadow lines, you just add a little bit of color right over top of it, and it works very, very well. I'm also going to add a little bit of shadow where the feathers would overlap. Okay, and then we're going to blend that out with the washed purple. Okay, I'm going to use the white to blend those together. Okay, that does look a little gray to me, so I am going to bring in some other colors. I know I just said I wasn't going to do that, but I'm going to bring a little bit of the fudge color that I have. I think I used that on the clouds, and a little bit of cream actually too. And I'm just going to randomly add these colors in the highlight areas. So anywhere where there's open white space, I'm going to add a little bit of that in. And then again with the cream, the same kind of thing, just randomly here and there. Okay, and then we'll use, I'm going to use the dark indigo to just darken up a little bit of the shadows here. All right, I have a super thin brush, so hopefully that will help when I am attempting to paint. So I have my watercolors off screen here. I'm just grabbing a little bit of paint from that. And I'm going to use this little tiny liner brush to do her arm bracelet. I think that worked. Okay. And I'll do the same thing for her belt. Okay, and I think she's done. So I'll hold her up just a little closer so you can see. Like, it's not super detailed, but at least she's got some. Okay, so let's move on to, I'm going to do a little bit of shading on the harp and do the swan's beak, and then we'll do the flowers that are hanging out here. So let me just grab some stuff for that. All right, so in a lot of the reference images I've seen, the swan beaks tend to be really orange, but I'm going to try to do it more in a goldish tone. I don't know if this is going to work, but I've grabbed terracotta and light yellow ochre from my Polychromos. So I'm going to start with the terracotta. And again, just adding the darker color where the shadows are supposed to be. I'm going to blend that out a little bit with the light yellow ochre. I'm going to use my cream to blend that out a little bit. Okay, I think that looks all right. Just to darken this up a little bit, I'm going to use the Dark Night over the black part of the bill, and then my black, my Polychromos black as well. And in the darkest areas, really darken that up. Okay, so there's that. Let's do some shading on the harp. I'm going to use this 263 from my Polychromos, and again, anywhere where there should be some shading. So around all of these little divots that are holding the harp in place, there should be a little bit of something right in there. And then the strings themselves will create a little bit of shadow. Along the edges and anywhere where there's been like a little bit of curving, there's usually a little bit of shadow just to kind of show you that it's a rounded shape. I'm going to do a little bit on all of those areas. All right, I'm going to darken that up because it's not quite the right color. So again, I'm going to come in with the black, and anywhere where I feel like there should be really dark shadows, I'll add that in there. Now I'm just giving a little bit more definition to the strings by adding a tiny little bit of black to either side of the string. Okay. All right, I like that much better. I am going to add just a little bit more paint in a couple of spots. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. hoping you guys can see some of the shade here. I'll tilt it so maybe you can see a little bit of the shading that I've done on it. Okay, we're gonna move to the flowers. So I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do this flower, which will be the same for this one and this one up here. And then I will show you how I do these ones as well. And then I'll just finish the rest of those. So I'll color one of each on camera here, and then I will finish those off screen. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna just try to stick with white again. So for these ones, I'm gonna have them match her dress. And then I think these flowers here, I might do with more of a blue tint. That's my kind of plan. So let's see how we go with that. All right, so I'm gonna grab the same colors that I used for her dress. So I've got the Dark Night and Washed Purple. So we're gonna do this in the darkest areas. All right, and then we'll go to the white. Okay. Now let's add in a little bit of the fudge color into spots, just a couple of places. And then some of the cream as well. Okay, and then on the, where this overlaps, where like the flower overlaps here, I'm gonna add in the dark indigo. Just because that's quite a bit of shadow created in this flower inside, and I just want that to be a little bit of a different color. Okay, and then the other thing that I'm going to do with this is I'm going to outline that in white. All right, I do want this to have a little bit more blue, so I'm going to add in some of the Zephyr blue in some of the darker areas. Same with her dress, actually, just in a couple of spots. It's a little not green enough, or not green enough. It's a little too gray. Holy moly. That didn't make any sense. Okay. All right, so that is gonna be what the rest of those look like. So I'm gonna go off screen and do those real quick. Okay, so you can see the flowers there that I did with in the white color scheme, I guess. So these other three flowers are, like I said, they're going to be blues. I'm going to zoom you in on those, and then we'll grab some colors. Okay, we're going to work on this one up here. I'm going to use a combination of colors that I did on her hair. So I've got the dark indigo from my Polychromos, the Zephyr blue from my Black Widow. I have the sky blue from Polychromos, and then I'm going to use my white Prismacolor as well. The centers of these are going to be the gold that I've already used paint-wise other places. So I'll just show you how I do that, and then the centers I'm just gonna come in and paint gold. So, okay, we're gonna just kind of do what we did with her hair. Start with the dark indigo in the darkest places. Okay, and we'll switch to the Zephyr blue. Then the sky blue. And then the white. Yep, and so I'm going to do all of the petals the same exact way, all the way around. Let me do this other petal here for you, just so you can kind of see again what I do. I also, you know, if things are overlapping, I give it a little bit of shading too. So just don't forget that part. Okay, so that was the dark indigo, and I'm going to do the Zephyr blue. Then we're going to go sky blue, and then the white. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to do that, and then like I said, the centers are going to be gold, but I'm going to do all 3 of the rest of the flowers that look like this, just like that. I will color a little bit of this, let you see it, and then when we come back, those will be done. I'm also going to go ahead and paint in the rest of the stars, the big stars like in front of the clouds and stuff. Okay, so I will talk to you again here in a couple seconds. All right, so here is where we are. I've got the flowers done. I'll hold those up so you can see those. I really like the blue flowers. I think those really pop off of the pink. And then I'm going to, last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of work in the sky. So let me zoom you in for that. So all I'm going to do is use my Posca, hopefully, because it's been giving me a little bit issues, but I'm going to use my Posca to draw in all of these stars. No, it's not going to work with my Posca, I don't think. I'm going to have to go get a different Posca. Give me a second. Okay, so yeah, that's the only thing I don't like about Poscas is that you can't tell when the paint's out. I mean, other than performance, but yeah. So I'm going to go through and do all of these little stars with the white. Okay, so there's some of the stars drawn in from the background, and I'm also going to be adding in my own little dots across the sky. So I'm going to do that for the entire rest of the background, and I think we'll be done. So I'll go do that really quick, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, and then last but not least, on this little area right here, so I've outlined the little lines that were in the background, and I'm just going to use my white Prismacolor inside of where I've done the Posca lines. And since I have that alcohol marker background, I'm able to lighten it up quite a bit so that it looks like it is smoke covered or magic covered or whatever it is. Okay. All right, let me take a last look and then we'll see how we're doing. Okay, so yeah, so I think this is it. I really like the way that this looks. I love the gold on there. I think that's so super sparkly. I'm gonna hold it up so you can see. So there's the sky there and a little bit close up of the character and the swan. We did some work on the flowers and the clouds. I do really like the gold tipped wings. I think that's a good touch. And yeah, that is it. That's the color along for this month. I hope you guys liked it. I love this book. This Aviary book is so beautiful, and I am happy to have another page done in this. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye.